By the end of this chapter you should be able to explain the meaning of resource allocation, describe the features of the traditional economic system, describe the features of the command economy, describe the features of the free market economy, describe the features of the mixed economy, compare the economic systems, assess the benefits and problems associated with the command and free market economies. Resource allocation can be defined as the act of dividing up the scarce resources of the economy to produce different goods and services to meet the needs and wants of society. Resource allocation is the distribution of the economy's scarce resources among alternative uses. The economy has scarce resources. Man's wants are unlimited. Therefore, each economy must find a way to allocate the finite resources to fulfill competing wants. When allocating resources, certain questions must be answered. They are, what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Let us look at our first economic question. Firms and governments must decide what goods and services are to be produced. Should the economy produce only the basic items that people need, such as rice, vegetables, meat, roads, schools and medicine? Or should the economy produce other items which are wants, such as cars, designer clothing? The economy must decide whether only needs will be satisfied. If wants are to be satisfied, the economy must find a way to determine what people really want. How to produce. Firms and governments must also decide on how output is to be produced. The method of production can be capital-intensive, meaning that a great deal of capital is used in relation to each unit of labor in the production process. A labor-intensive method can be adopted, where a great deal of labor is used in relation to each unit of capital. Production can also take place on a large scale, where output is mass-produced, or on a small scale, where output is custom-made to suit the individual needs of the buyer. Economies must also decide how the goods produced with the limited resources available are to be shared out amongst members of society. Some goods are distributed based on ability to pay the price. Whether or not you own a BMW depends, at least in part, on your ability to pay the price. Sometimes, the government might distribute some goods based on need. Subsidized housing and some other goods are distributed free of charge. For example, street lamps. To allocate these scarce resources in the world today, different economic systems have evolved. The four main types of economic systems that we have in the Caribbean and the rest of the world are the traditional economic system, the command economy, also known as the planned economy, the free market economy, and the mixed economy. A traditional economic system is an economy that is self-sufficient. This economic system is also known as the subsistence economy. Here, man's needs are satisfied mainly through direct production, that is, through his own production of goods and services. There might be some surplus produced, which can be traded or stored for later use. These economies do not use money, so trade is limited to barter, the exchange of goods for goods. Some examples of traditional economies are the isolated tribes of Asia, Africa and South America. Closer to home, the closed Amerindian communities of Guyana exist in traditional economies. The Wai Indians reside in the north-central area of the Brazilian Amazon close to the border of Venezuela and in Guyana. As these economies are isolated, they remain largely unaffected by developments in the modern world. Traditional economies are closed. They have limited contact with the rest of the world. Therefore, resource allocation decisions are based on what the economy is accustomed to doing. As the economy is closed, there is no innovation. Therefore, decisions on what to produce, how and for whom remain generally the same over time. This is one of the reasons that such economies are, in fact, called traditional economies. Production decisions are based on long-established habits. If the community is used to planting 4 plots of cassava in the rainy season, they will continue to do this for a long time. The features of the traditional economy are, ownership of resources is based on what is passed on to you by your ancestors. There is no formal government, though many of these societies have a leader and systems to ensure justice and order. Private individuals own and allocate resources. Resource allocation is based on tradition. What to produce, how to produce and for whom to produce are all based on what the economy is accustomed doing. There is no money in this economy, so trade is done by barter. The economy is closed to outside trade and external influences. In the command economy, production is concentrated in the hands of the state. The state owns all economic resources, and production decisions are made by the state. Cuba is an example of a command economy. The state decides what to produce based on what the government thinks is best for all members of society. There is a public sector, where government-owned firms operate to allocate resources and to produce goods and services. In some command economies, there is also a national planning authority that makes planning decisions on behalf of the state. The state decides how to produce based on what resources it has, the level of technology present, and other government goals. In such an economy, the state might, in fact, choose to use a labor-intensive form of production even though it has the technology to produce a good more efficiently. This could be because it wishes to create jobs for the population. The state also decides for whom to produce, based on the needs of the population, and might direct labor into whatever work is thought necessary. Resources might not be used to produce luxury items. The features of the command economy are: 1. The state owns all the factors of production and business units. 2. The government assumes full responsibility for the economy. The government makes laws, provides infrastructure, and is involved in production. 3. There is no private sector. 4. The state, through the Central Planning Authority, allocates resources. 5. All workers are employed by the state. 6. There is restricted choice for the consumer, since producers are told what to produce by the Central Planning Authority and there are not many firms producing the same product. The free market economy is an economy in which private individuals allocate resources. In this economy, private individuals also own resources. These private individuals own and operate firms. That part of the economy containing such private firms is called the private sector. The USA is perhaps the world's best-known example of a free market economy. In the free market economy, resources are allocated according to the market mechanism, otherwise known as the price mechanism, system. The price mechanism allows price to be determined by the interaction of the forces of demand and supply. The decisions of sellers are linked to the decisions of buyers by the price mechanism. Firms decide on what to produce based on what is being demanded by buyers. Each time a product is sold, this is a signal to producers to supply more of this item. Purchasers, therefore, act as votes towards the production of a particular product. Producers will move more resources into the production of goods that are in high demand. When goods are not bought, this is also a signal to producers, a signal to supply fewer of these goods. Resources are then moved out of the production of such goods. Price, therefore, has a signaling function. Firms decide on how to produce based on factor availability, the level of technology, and the relative costs of factors of production. Beko Ice Cream Co. might decide to use more labor in the factory, if labor is easier to obtain than capital. If the technology is advanced and capital is very productive, firms might choose to use the capital instead of labor. Firms will choose more productive capital, even if the initial capital outlay is very expensive, because it is productive. A firm will employ either the cheaper factor or the more productive factor, even if this means that some labor will be unemployed. Firms decide on for whom to produce based on the price mechanism. Since scarcity exists and there is not enough of any good for all of us to obtain the quantities that we desire, goods and services are allocated to us based on our ability to pay the price. Firms produce for those who can pay the price. The features of the free market economy are: 1. Private individuals own all the factors of production and business units. 2. The government assumes full responsibility in the economy for making laws and providing infrastructure. 3. The private sector owns and allocates resources. 4. Resources are allocated through the price mechanism. 5. Producers are guided by the profit motive. This means that the possibility of earning profits motivates production. 6. There is freedom of choice for the consumer. Choices are determined by the range of goods produced by firms. Consumers can choose to buy or not to buy. In addition, workers can also choose whatever occupation they wish, as well as for whom they work. Finally, there is consumer sovereignty, where consumers purchase or failure. To purchase a good determines which goods are produced and in what quantities in the economy. In the mixed economy, both private individuals and the government allocate resources. There is both a private sector and a public sector. The Caribbean countries such as Barbados, Jamaica, and Dominica are all mixed economies. Privately owned firms operate in the private sector. Economic decisions on what to produce are based on the price mechanism. A higher price for a good pulls more resources into the production of that good, whereas a lower price diverts resources elsewhere. How to produce decisions are based on the costs of the factors of production, their availability, and their productivity. Unlike the government in the public sector, private sector firms aim to minimize costs, and so firms will choose the cheaper factors of production relative to their productivity. They will also choose the more efficient factor, even if this means that some labor will not be employed. Decisions about for whom products will be produced are also based on who wants to buy the good and whether that consumer can pay the price. Remember that resource allocation in this sector is identical to resource allocation in the free market economy. The public sector is that part of the economy in which government-owned firms operate. Just as in the command economy, public sector decisions on what to produce, how to produce and for whom to produce are based on what the government thinks is best for the economy and the people. Some possible merits of a command economy: 1. Factors of production can be organized to produce public goods. 2. Factors of production can be organized to produce merit goods. 3. As the state owns all the resources, any profits belong to the state. Profits can be redistributed to benefit all citizens. 4. The state can ensure that people work in healthy and safe conditions. Also, the state can ensure that its firms will not cause any pollution. 5. Goods and services are priced so that everyone can afford them. And 6. The distribution of income and wealth is even. No one group can become richer because of earnings from land or capital they own. Some possible demerits of a command economy are: 1. People cannot influence the production of goods and services by demand or lack of it. 2. The government makes decisions about what to produce. If the planning authority is not in touch with what people need and want, there can be long delays in the provision of goods and services. This sometimes makes production inefficient. 3. All profits go to the state. There is the absence of the profit motive, and so there is no incentive for managers to give of their best. This can lead to corruption in state-owned companies. 4. As there is no price system, there could be shortages of goods in high demand, or surpluses of goods that consumers are not buying. Shortages serve a function by indicating to producers that they should supply more, and surpluses indicate that there is need to cut back production. However, their existence indicates that there is a misallocation of resources. Moreover, surpluses could lead to wastage. Some possible merits of a free market economy are: there is freedom of choice as to what to produce, what to consume and where to work. Shortages occur where consumer demand exceeds supply. This results in higher prices and more of the good in short supply being produced, thus eliminating the shortage. Surpluses occur where supply exceeds consumer demand. This results in lower prices and less of the good in oversupply being produced, thus eliminating the surplus. The price mechanism works quickly and so saves time. There is less bureaucracy and red tape. The price mechanism does not need civil servants and officials to decide on what to produce. This saves valuable government resources. The government is not involved in the production of goods and services, and so is free to perform its other functions efficiently. The profit motive encourages producers to produce at the lowest possible cost in order to make higher profits. There are many firms in each industry. Such competition results in the production of quality goods and services. The availability of profits and the attraction of even higher profits encourage firms to spend on research and development, R&D. This results in innovation and invention. Invention is the creation of something new and original. Innovation is improving or making changes to something already in existence. Some possible demerits of a free market economy are: firms operate with very little government intervention. They might produce to make a profit and will not always ensure that pollution levels are kept down. As there is little government control of the economy, firms might seek to maximize profits. Firms might not regard the working conditions and level of workers' wages as important. Workers might be exploited, especially in industries where there is an oversupply of workers. It is not possible to produce public goods through the market mechanism. Public goods are goods that are consumed collectively, for example, street lighting and defense. It is difficult to charge for street lighting based on who uses the good. It is also difficult to exclude those who do not pay for the good from using it. This makes public goods non-excludable. Public goods are also non-diminishable. Consumption of the good by one individual does not reduce the amount available for others to consume. There is no incentive in the market economy for firms to produce public goods. Merit goods are not produced and consumed in adequate amounts. Merit goods are goods where the welfare to society from its consumption exceeds the costs of the good. Some examples of merit goods are education and health. If left to individuals to choose how much they consume in the way of merit goods, they might choose to forego consumption in favor of goods that yield short-term benefits, such as DVDs and holidays. Firms might grow and take over smaller firms. This could result in monopoly power in the market. When the firm is the only supplier, consumers can be exploited in terms of higher prices or reduced quality. The owners of land and capital earn considerable income and become rich. The owners of unskilled labor, the sick and the unemployed remain poor. This leads to an unequal distribution of wealth.